Well, welcome to Continental Prime here on News Central Television Studios, reaching you from Lagos, Nigeria, Nigeria's economic capital. I'm Sulaiman Alede. The headlines for this are: South Africa's former president, Jacob Zuma, goes to court tomorrow in a bid to stop his arrest. Preparations continue ahead of Tuesday's March for Justice rally in Ghana. Southern governors in Nigeria say the next president should come from their region as part of a six-part communique issued after the meeting today. Details shortly. We begin in South Africa, where former President Jacob Zuma heads to the High Court tomorrow to prevent the police from arresting him. Zuma was given 5 days to hand himself over to the police after the Constitutional Court found him guilty of contempt of court and sentenced him to jail in 15 months in jail. Now, the verdict was linked to his failure to appear before the country's State Capture Commission, but the former statesman now plans to appeal the decision. At the weekend, hundreds of Zuma supporters gathered outside the homestead of the statesman, who hosted a press briefing explaining why he has gone back to court to argue against the sentence. Well, joining me this evening is a political analyst from the Institute for Global Dialogue, Sanusha Naidu, to unpack the latest developments. Sanusha, good to see you again. Now, let's start with the logic of this move by the former president to stay the prosecution. What do you make of it?
Good evening, Suleiman, and to the viewers. It's lovely to be back on your show. I think it's really just a delay tactic in terms of what the former president has done is that his legal team has asked for issued an affidavit to the Constitutional Court, which is the highest court of the land. It's the apex court where once a decision is made, there's no higher body to appeal that decision. So what the former president has done is that he's done two things. He's actually sent an affidavit to the Constitutional Court late Friday afternoon, as well as an application, an urgent application, I should say, to the Pietermaritzburg, which is a region in KwaZulu-Natal where the former president comes from. And what he has done is that urgent application will be heard tomorrow, and it's based on the request that they are making, the Mr. Zuma's legal team are making to the Pietermaritzburg High Court to stay the execution of the arrest warrant. Because after the constitutional majority ruling was read out, Acting Chief Justice Mampepe then issued a order of committal, meaning that the police will then have to make sure that he is, if he had presented himself to the police station or compelled him to present himself, he would have then had to be taken to a correctional service facility where he would have to serve out this 15-month sentence. Now, what he's asking the High Court to do in Pietermaritzburg tomorrow is not enable that execution, that arrest warrant, so to speak, or that arrest decision. So all will depend on whether the High Court in Pietermaritzburg tomorrow sees it that they are able to keep a stay of execution based on a higher court, which is the Constitutional Court. Can they basically say, we have jurisdiction? And I think that's what Mr. Zuma's legal team is testing. Now, legal experts are split in South Africa about this. They are split in the sense that they say that no court that's lower than the Constitutional Court can actually can overturn any decision of the Constitutional Court, nor can they stay an execution order.
Well, again, I think a lot of issues playing out here because just yesterday there was this huge crowd at the home of the former president. And of course, saying that, look, this must not happen. But in the wake of a third wave happening in South Africa specifically and seeing the rise in COVID-19, what does this all amount to?
Well, the scenes that unfolded over the weekend, and in particular in the run-up to what we saw at the president's home in Nkandla, which is outside the city of Durban, essentially told us that the former president just does not want to go to court. He doesn't want to be held accountable, and the behavior was very, very disturbing. What it also tells us, Suleiman, is that what we saw yesterday and the days before, particularly yesterday where there were lots of crowds, hundreds and hundreds of people that were coming out, they actually are being asked to defend the former president on the basis that this is a political witch hunt against him. He's being targeted. If you listen to the press briefing in terms of what's currently on the screen now, yesterday evening he gave a press briefing, saying that he was treated better under apartheid than he is being treated under a post-apartheid government. He says that if he is to go to prison and serve this 15-month sentence, it's akin to a death sentence because he's an old man, fragile, medical conditions, and with COVID-19, with COVID-19, in the third pandemic we are in, it's basically writing a death sentence for him. But having said that, he took no responsibility for what was happening outside his home. People were not wearing masks. We're in the midst of a third wave. In fact, the numbers are so scary at the moment. We're reaching, at least in the last 24-hour cycle, we've reached almost 28,000 new infections in this period. And this is not even talking about the fact that the positivity rate is around 34%. So I think at this point in time, what is happening is that all violations were happened over the weekend at Nkanhla. We are in lockdown 4 regulations. That was not observed. People were not wearing masks. There was no social distancing, and I'm not even sure the people were sanitizing their hands. The media were threatened. They were basically there was a very scary situation where the individuals that were the MK Association, which is a disbanded constituency, they're basically acting as foot soldiers to protect Mr. Zuma and his homestead, were threatening media. People were basically very volatile towards media. A lot of violations were happening, in addition to the fact that you had members a suspended SG, Ace Magashule, who took the podium on Sunday defying his own suspension conditions. Now, all of this is coming to a head in terms of the special NEC meeting, the National Executive Committee meeting of the African National Congress, which sat today, and we'll know tomorrow what the outcomes are there in dealing with this situation.
Well, Sanusha, I know you and members of the Institute of Global Dialogue have been studying, so much, about this development. For instance, in Nigeria and a couple of other West African nations, they have hailed that, pronouncement by the court. But let's discuss the political implications of that now. What kind of message does this now send, going by the praise that court got from many Africans?
Well, I think the implications politically was what we saw over the weekend and what we saw in the response by Mr. Zuma. I mean, initially the response when the judgment was made last Tuesday was that he would abide by that judgment. He still maintains that he respects the rule of law, that he respects the Constitution, he respects the judicial system, but he also goes and contradicts those statements by saying that he believes that there's a conspiracy theory there, that he believes that the judges have not treated him well. He also kind of intimated, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he essentially says that the judicial system must protect him. So he's got this very interesting view of the fact that he feels he's done no wrong. Politically, I think what Mr. Zuma is doing now is testing the very high level of our constitution. He's testing the judicial system, but he's testing the constitutional court. In South Africa, there's also mixed reaction to this. I think some quarters in South Africa believe that when he made this application to have the rescind or rescission application in terms of the constitutional court decision, he shouldn't have been entertained. That some legal experts and some people in the public domain believe that the Constitutional Court should not keep accommodating him. I think what he is doing is that he's trying to, I think he understands, because this is not an appeal of the Constitutional Court decision. I don't think you can appeal it. But what he's doing, he's saying set it aside because you erroneously made this decision. He's arguing that he wasn't given his time or his rights in terms of presentation and representation before the Constitutional Court was not allowed. Now, there are basically ways and means in which the whole issue is being looked at in different ways by Mr. Zuma's legal team. I think they're just buying time, they're delaying it. I think it's not really that, I think in the back of their mind, they know that this is a long shot, but this is more politically motivated. And of course, it really cuts a serious dilemma for the ANC as a ruling party, because in the court of public opinion, majority of South Africans, I think, in my opinion, feel really, really disheartened that we've come to this situation right now.
Senator Naidu, many thanks for unpacking this for us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Well, in neighboring Eswatini, the government has clamped down on protesting citizens, blocking access to the internet for dissenting citizens. Now, the internet clampdown follows the dusk to dawn curfew imposed by Prime Minister Temba Malku last week as pro-democracy protests continued. Citizens are calling for widespread democratic reforms to take place to abolish the last absolute monarchy in Africa. More than 19 people are believed to have died and more than 50 people injured. Earlier, we spoke to Lucky Lukwele of Swaziland Solidarity Network, who gave us the latest protest.
What has happened for the past 9 weeks is that the people of Swaziland has been on the streets demanding one thing: the unbanning of political parties, the release of all political prisoners, including those that are out on bail, the unconditional return of all exiles. And then they call for a constitutional assembly, that will elect an interim government. And that interim government must also prepare a constitution that would even determine the future role of the monarch, whether it is still relevant or not. So that's what has been happening in Swaziland, which was violently responded to by the king and the acting prime minister, Temba Masuku, where he unleashed the army and the police. As we speak right now, we have 47 Swazis being massacred in 3 days, from Monday last week to Wednesday. We have over 200 that are in operation within different health centers in Swaziland. Some of them have been amputated. So the situation is quite dire as we speak.
Well, it seems that we have a lot of protests going, pockets of protests across the continent. Now to Ghana, where there is a protest coming up July 6. There's a hashtag March for Justice protest by the youth wing of Ghana's main opposition party. That's the National Democratic Congress, and the hashtag Fix the Country movement. They say the wave of protests rocking the country is politically motivated. Now, speaking with News Central, the national youth organizer of the NPP, Nana Boakye, says his party will not be distracted by the developments and odds that the Nana Akufo-Addo government is fixing the country's issues, especially the challenges of COVID-19.
How I've assessed the situation is politically motivated. I mean, any rational and a reasonable thinking person will know that we have just come out of a very difficult situation facing the world. I mean, COVID-19 has been a global pandemic and it is still around, and we've suffered a lot. I mean, all aspects of our development, I mean, went down. So I'm surprised when people say that we've just come out of an election 2020, and then just a few months after, maybe a month or 2 months after, people start this agitation. I mean, clearly it's politically motivated, but the government is focused. The government is poised to deliver on its mandate. So we are not really perturbed by some of these things. For me, majority of Ghanaians are on the side of the government.
In the meantime, the Fix the Country conveners say it will not participate in the NDC's March for Justice demonstration on Tuesday, July 6. Now, joining me now is News Central's Benneth Joseph for a live update to unpack the development. Good to see you, Benneth. Now, quickly here, Benneth, what's the position of the NPP ahead of tomorrow's March for Justice protest?
Okay, so to be clear, the NPP is the current ruling party here in Ghana. It is the party of Nana Akufo-Addo. And earlier I spoke with the national youth organizer for the party, Nana Boakye, who told me that they believe that the protests are politically motivated. They believe that the demands and the what's being asked by the protesters are not being genuine. They actually believe that the Nana Akufo-Addo government is doing its best to ensure that Ghana is placed in its right position within the continent. However, they tell me that they would protect the rights of Ghanaians to protest and express their displeasure over political or economic concerns, that they believe it is the fundamental rights of Ghanaians to protest, but they do feel that the protests are politically motivated.
Well, I understand there's a delay feedback from me to you, but that's for our viewers. Quickly here, Bennett, where in Ghana will this protest be taking place?
Okay, so yesterday I spoke with the national youth organizer for the opposition party, the National Democratic Congress, and he told me that the convergence point for protesters will be at the Accra Mall in the greater Accra region, and from there the protesters will be moving to the parliament and then to the presidency. They intend to submit 2 petitions, one to the presidency and one to parliament. They are optimistic that after tomorrow's protest, the Nana Akufo-Addo government will be willing to listen to the demands of Ghanaians and meet their expectations.
Well, earlier I spoke with some legal minds here in Nigeria about how police should, forge, a system whereby protection is given to protesters. So now, going forward, will the police be providing security for protesters as they march for justice tomorrow in Ghana?
Initially, there was a bit of setback in that regard. The police were citing COVID-19 scares as a reason why they would not be providing security for protesters. But the protesters, especially those under the National Democratic Congress, threatened to take the Ghanaian police to court because they believe that it is the responsibility of the Ghanaian police to protect protesters during a protest. Actually, on that...
Well, I'm sorry. I think, Bennett, there seemed to be a glitch in the connection to you in Ghana. We hope to re-establish that connection. There's Bennett, my colleague there, Bennett Joseph, live in Ghana, bringing us update on the July 6th march in Ghana. Now, staying in other parts of the continent, specifically staying in West Africa, southern governors in Nigeria have jointly agreed that the country's next president should come from the south. Now, this was a part of a 6-point communique issued after a meeting held in the southwestern state of Lagos on Monday. Now, the governors also set September 21 as the deadline for the promulgation of anti-open grazing law among its member states. The governors also reiterated the call for state police and set a timeline of Wednesday, September 1 to promulgate the anti-open grazing law in all member states. News Central's Mary Chinda has more.
Peaceful coexistence between and amongst its people. The forum reiterates its commitment to the policies of equity, fairness, and unanimously agreed that the presidency of Nigeria be repeated within southern and northern Nigeria, and resolved that the next president of Nigeria to emerge from the south.
Now, staying in southwestern Nigeria, some lawyers have lodged a claim for $1.2 million in damages against the security police on behalf of Yoruba separatist leader Sunday Adeyemo, popularly known as Sunday Igboho. This followed a raid in his home on Thursday by the Department of State Services, where some of his followers were killed. Igboho was accused of stockpiling weapons. He leads a Yoruba nation group which is campaigning for the actualization of a sovereign state known as the Oodua Republic. Now, gunmen in Nigeria's northwestern state of Kaduna have kidnapped at least 140 school children. The latest incident comes after at least 8 people were abducted from the National Tuberculosis and Leprosy Center in Zaria local government area of the state on Sunday morning. 2 nurses and a 12-month-old child were among those seized. The students were taken from Bethel Baptist School by armed men who arrived on motorbikes and broke down the fence. In a statement, police said the gunmen overpowered the school's security guards and made their way into the students' hostel, where they abducted an unspecified number of students. The statement said 26 people, including a female teacher, had been rescued. Côte d'Ivoire's former presidents Laurent Gbagbo and Henry Konan Bédié will meet this weekend in the latest step in the country's long-running political crisis. The meeting between the 2 former rivals will take place on Saturday in Dokro, Bédié's stronghold in central Côte d'Ivoire. A statement ahead of the meeting said the visit would be the chance for a fraternal reunion between the 2 presidents following President Laurent Gbagbo's return to his homeland as a free man. The 76-year-old Gbagbo, 87-year-old Bédié, and 79-year-old current President Alassane Ouattara have dominated Côte d'Ivoire's political scene for decades, often plunging into rivalries or forging alliances. Now, coming up, 134 high school students test positive for COVID-19 Delta variant. Details of these and more when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. The news continues in the north of Africa, where Algerians are celebrating their 59th independence from France. In his speech to mark the day, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune pointed out the government's commitment to establish a program to serve the people. I'm now being joined by Algerian correspondent Ibrahim Raid for more on the independent celebrations. Now, congratulations and happy independence, Ibrahim. How has the government and Algerians celebrated the independence with the COVID-19 restrictions there?
At first, congratulations to all Algerian people. Algerians always celebrate the sacrifices they made for freedom and independence, which reached the limit of 1.5 million martyrs. Do you know that?
Well, a lot is happening in Algeria at the moment. Perhaps you should be able to tell us what are some of the key takeaway points on today's Independence Day for the people of Algeria.
Yeah. According to a joint statement by the General Directorate of Public Service and the Ministry of Labor and Employment, Monday, which corresponds with the Independence Day, is a paid holiday for all employees and in public institutions and administration. That was first. And of course, stressing the measures to avoid infection with COVID-19. That was for the administrations and institutions.
So Ibrahim, tell us, if you will, what's the difference between this 59th anniversary, pre-COVID, before now? How would this day be celebrated?
They celebrated this year by putting their flags of Algeria in their houses and something like sharing videos about the independence and the war and the martyrs on Facebook or social media like that. But COVID-19 is dangerous and makes everything different.
No one likes COVID-19. It's almost taken away the fun aspect of everything. And for a great day like this for Algerians, again, some Africans are asking about the relationship between your country and its colonial powers, colonial masters, France. How is it at the moment?
I could say it's stable, something like that in the days. But the Algerian looks forward to their countries. They considering on making them great again. They are always thinking about making Algeria great again. They have a very huge love for their country.
Once again, congratulations and happy independence, Ibrahim.
Happy independence for all the African people.
Thank you very much, our correspondent there, Ibrahim, speaking to us about that fine moment for all Algerians and Africans on the country's 59th independence. Now, in neighboring Tunisia, Coast Guards have retrieved the bodies of 21 sub-Saharan migrants and rescued 50 after their boat sank off the port city of Sfax. Now, Guard spokesman Houssem Eddine Jabali said on Monday that a recent incident is the fourth time a boatload of migrants will sink since June 26. Jabali said a total of 49 bodies had been recovered, while 78 persons have been rescued. Now, the latest figures from as Africa's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says that the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases on the continent has reached 5.66 million on Monday. The Africa CDC said the death toll from the pandemic is currently above 146,000, while more than 4.92 million patients across the continent have recovered from the disease. Now, the health agency says South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Ethiopia and Egypt are the countries with the most cases on the continent. Now, in terms of the caseload, it says Southern Africa is the most affected region, followed by the northern and eastern parts of the continent. At the same time, Central Africa is the least affected region in the continent. Now, Egypt's cabinet has eased guest limits for hotels, restaurants, cinemas and theaters to 70% of capacity from 50% following a reduction in coronavirus infections. The latest announcement by the cabinet follows a series of actions to ease pandemic restrictions since June 1. The cabinet's decision also comes as the Deputy Minister of Tourism, Ghada Shalabi, said that Egypt's tourism revenues were between $3.5 billion and $4 billion in the first half of 2021, while the country received about 3.5 million tourists from January to June. Now, she said the figure is down by about 70% from $13.03 billion recorded in 2019. Now, in West Africa, the Ghana Health Service has confirmed that at least 134 students and a teacher in a high school have been infected with the COVID-19 Delta variant. GHS Director General Patrick Kumar Abwagye says 135 of 550 samples taken in Achimota School returned positive. He says that 3 students from the school went to the hospital last month with symptoms of influenza, but ended up testing positive for COVID-19. He adds that the majority of the students who tested positive are day students. Ghana first confirmed 6 cases of COVID-19 Delta variants among passengers arriving in the country on June 22. Now, speaking of the Delta variant, the COVID-19 strain has also been discovered in 17 out of 18 tested samples carried out in Namibia. On Monday, the Health Ministry said that the variant was discovered following the latest genome sequencing exercises covering the month of May and June. In a statement, Namibia's Ministry of Health Executive Director Ben Ngombe said the samples were obtained from positive COVID-19 cases from the Central Khomas region. Ngombe said more genomic sequencing activities will be carried out in the coming weeks to determine the extent to which the variant may be present in the rest of the country. As of July 4, Namibia has recorded over 1,600 deaths since the COVID-19 pandemic started. Now, Kenya's health ministry says close to 460,000 citizens have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The ministry on Monday said more than 1.47 million COVID-19 vaccines had been administered across the country, 1.01 million being first doses. It adds that close to 460,000 Kenyans have received their second doses. The health ministry adds that 185 new coronavirus cases had been recorded, raising the country's total tally to more than 186,000 cases. Over the next 24 hours, 15 new deaths from COVID-19 were reported, with total fatalities of the coronavirus now standing at 3,690. Well, still ahead, a chemical plant explosion in Bangkok, Thailand, has left one firefighter dead and 29 other persons injured. More on this when we return, and join us again. Now, an explosion near the international airport in Bangkok, Thailand, has left one firefighter dead and 29 other persons injured on Monday. Now, the blast occurred around 3 in the morning at the Taiwan-based Mingdi Chemical Company. The public has been ordered to stay away from a radius of at least 500 meters around the blast site. The cause of the explosion is still unknown. Now, Botswana's energy regulator has granted a generation license for a 100-megawatt solar project to a local firm. The license makes Shumba Energy the country's first large-scale solar power generator. The recent development will help boost the country's 600-megawatt national energy demand met by state-owned coal-fired plants and imports from South Africa and Mozambique. The solar plant will operate as a merchant power producer feeding into the Southern African power pool. For the rest of the business story, let's go to Lekon Onobanjo.
It's time for business news on NC Continental Prime. Thanks for joining us. I am Lekon Onobanjo. The Central Bank of Kenya has reported a rise in the foreign exchange reserves of East African nation, and this is the highest level in 12 months, according to data from the Apex Bank. The reserves surged by $1.38 billion in the past week to $9.5 billion, the second straight week of gains on the highest level since July 16, 2020. Economists attribute the sharp increase in foreign currency reserves to recent disbursements from the Bretton Woods institutions and funds from Eurobond 4. The reserves are expected to assist Kenya in meeting its foreign debt obligations, offer protection against short-term economic shocks, and support the Kenya shilling from declining against major international currencies. Also, the shilling remained stable against leading regional and international currencies during the week that ended on July 1, exchanging at 107.92 Kenya shillings per US dollar on July 1, compared to 107.77 Kenya shillings per US dollar on June 24. Now, Kenya Revenue Authority tax collections in the just ended 2020-2021 financial year reached a new record of 1.669 trillion Kenya shillings compared to 1.607 trillion Kenya shillings the previous year. As reflected in the 2021 budget policy statement, the revenue target was 1.652 trillion Kenya shillings, which the Revenue Authority surpassed with a 16.8 billion Kenya shillings surplus. This is the first time the authority surpassed its revenue target since the 2013-2014 financial year. In a statement, the authority said this is a performance rate of 101% and revenue growth of 3.9% compared to 2019-2020 financial year. Also, available data indicates that revenue collection has more than doubled in the last 10 years from 707 billion Kenya shillings in 2011 and 2012 to 1.669 trillion Kenya shillings in 2020-2021 financial year, representing a growth of 136%. Moving over to South Africa now, South Africa's recovery may well be on its way as the government finances showed a significant improvement in May due to rising tax revenue despite restricted economic activity. Data from Statistics South Africa, STATSA, showed that the government recorded a relatively modest budget deficit in May of 5.4 billion rands. This was a significant improvement compared to the deficit of 52.4 billion rands in the same month a year ago at the height of strict lockdown. However, STATSA said that the fiscus remained constrained to recover to pre-pandemic levels. And away from that, now we tell you that OPEC Plus ministers have resumed talks today after failing to reach a deal on oil output policies in 2 days of talks last week amid a rare public standoff between Gulf allies Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. OPEC Plus, which agreed record output cuts in 2020 to cope with a COVID-induced price crash voted over the weekend, is set to lift output by about 2 million barrels per day from August to December 2021 and to extend their remaining cuts to the end of 2022 instead of ending in April 2022. However, the UAE blocked an agreement. The spat erupted at a sensitive time for the oil market and could delay plans to pump more oil through to the end of the year to cool global oil prices that have soared to 2.5-year highs. The OPEC Plus dispute has exposed a growing divergence between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. And straight to Egypt now, where the Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has announced the easing of coronavirus restrictions in Egypt by raising occupancy rate in hotels to 70% during the Higher Committee for the Management of the Coronavirus Crisis. The committee announced a raise in occupancy rates, which will also apply to restaurants and cafes, as well as cinemas and theaters. Egypt's health ministry has confirmed that 179 new coronavirus cases, bringing the country's total number of confirmed cases up to 282,082. According to the ministry spokesperson Khalid Magahid, the total number of COVID-19 related deaths has now reached 16,264 nationwide after the ministry announced 22 deaths. 459 patients were discharged from the quarantine at isolation hospitals, raising Egypt's total number of fully recovered cases to 214,087. Let's now tell you that a representative of the owners and insurers of the Ever Given container ship that blocked the Suez Canal in March said on Sunday that a formal settlement had been agreed with the Canal Authority to allow the vessel to be released. The Suez Canal Authority's car has held the giant ship and its crew in a lake between two stretches of the waterway since it was dislodged on March 29 amid disputes over a demand for compensation by the SCA. However, details of the settlements were not given. The canal earned revenue of $3 billion in the first 6 months of 2021, up by 8.8% compared with the same period last year, despite the Ever Given accident, according to the Suez Canal Authority chairman, Rugby. The SCA had demanded $916 million in compensation to cover salvage costs and efforts, reputational damage, and lost revenue before publicly lowering the request to $550 million. And that's it on Business News right here on NC Continental Prime. And thanks for watching. We'll join Felicity now, even as she brings you the rest of the news. I am Lekon Onobanjo. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Lekon. Good to see you, and hope to see you again. Well, now let's quickly join Seun Bankole and the rest of the News Central digital team for the trending stories of the day across Africa.
Thank you for joining us today on NC Trends. I'm Seun Bankole. Now let's take a look at the major topics that have stirred the most reactions on social media in the past few hours. All right, we begin with talks about how Rwandan President Paul Kagame drives his heads of state guests when they visit his country. Now, 63-year-old Kagame, who loves to drive, once gave the King of Morocco, Mohammed VI, and the presidents of Gabon, Congo, and Kenya a ride in his official armored Range Rover Sentinel. The former military leader, who has been described as the most impressive among African leaders, is known for taking his visiting president on a joyride. I want to go on a joyride too. Now, Rwandan troops had a go at him on this. Let's take some tweets. Molatello says, "This is true leadership. I bet they already feel welcomed. Paul is a trendsetter, but I guess it will take years for any African leader to follow in his footsteps." What do you think about that? All right, moving on. Walter M. Roberts says, "That's some serious power play. The visiting head will have no choice but to fully put trust on Kagame for their safety in that car without knowing the visitor will lean towards agreeing to Kagame's terms. In that car, you are not a head of state. You are a friend. And of course, as a friend, you got to cooperate, you know." All right, Lewis Michura has this one. "This shows the way he treats his colleagues with dignity and respect." All right, there's a sort of connection. Okay, we now move to this sad story from Nigeria on the death of hype man and DJ Flexi Niger. The hype man, who is behind the viral hype, one for the DJ, one for the hype man, who was also the only child of his mom, was, according to unconfirmed reports, poisoned to death on Saturday, July 3rd. Sometime in June, however, DJ Flexi, a student of Federal Polytechnic, Anambra State, shared a Facebook post in which he talked about success attracting envy. His death has left many heartbroken, and we'll now move to Instagram to take a few reactions. First, we have this one from Shine Luck. "One for the DJ, one for the hype man. Ha! They killed him because he donned a blow." A very sad story. MS_Pat says, "Omo, why is it that people can't be happy for you genuinely when you're winning? Why the hate? Everyone got their blessings, for crying out loud." Really though. All right, to the next one. Andy Blaze says, "May God shield us from envious friends and people. Amen." Finally, hashtag Saba March for Our Lives has resurfaced on Kenya's Twitter following the call for a full implementation of the Kenyan 2010 Constitution. The people of Kenya are demanding an immediate lift of the partial lockdown, provision of food for everyone, access to free and quality healthcare for everyone, among other requests. Now, Kenyans are calling out their government and encouraging each other to join in the organized fight against bad governance. Some tweets from Kenya now. This one says, hashtag Saba March for Our Lives. "The government of Kenya has failed totally. They use police as tools of oppression to oppress our youth and even jail them while innocent. We are tired of being harassed and tortured by the same people who are supposed to protect us." Now, that's a demand from Kenya too. We have this one from the Cook Rights, and it says, "In the fight for human rights, one must not be shaken by their struggle, but use it as a fuel in their quest for justice." Let's check another one out. All right, we have this one from @RootJulius5. She says, "Why is it that our rights are never upheld when human rights are entitlements that needs to be guaranteed simply because we are human beings? We, the people of Kenya, are demanding for the full implementation of the Constitution." All right, guys, it's a wrap on NC Trends today. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at News Central TV to share your thoughts. And remember to subscribe to News Central TV on YouTube. Thank you for watching. I'm Sean Bankole. It's time to get back to the rest of the news on NC Continental Prime.
Thanks as always, Sean Bankole. You know, sometimes listening and watching you, I just wish you can just keep going on because there's so much to cover on the continent. All the same, you can catch how on the News Central website. Now, Africa's #1 female tennis player makes a name for herself at the All England Club. Udoka Njoku has more for us with the latest sports stories. Good to see you, Udoka.
Thank you very much, Salai. And talking about Africa's most ranked tennis player when it comes to the female side now, the Tunisian 21st seed Ons Jabeur produced a stunning display to overcome Polish 7th seed Iga Swiatek and secure her first Wimbledon quarterfinal. And the 26-year-old has become the first Arab woman to reach the last 8 at the All England Club. The world number 24 recovered from his sets now to win 5-7, 6-1, 6-1 against 2020 French Open champion Swiatek. Najibor will meet second seed Belarusian Arina Sabalenka, who defeated 18th seed Elena Rybakina to reach her first Grand Slam quarterfinal.
Isn't this great? Leans into this drop shot, and Świątek's not even bothering to run.
Well, moving on, Kenya has named its men and women rugby 7 squads for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics as the country continues to hunt for a first-team medal at the Summer Games. Now, the men's team, nicknamed Shuja, will be led by Captain Andrew Amonde. Now, Coach Innocent Simiyu also named star winger Collins Injera, Billy Odiambo, and Willie Ambaka, who will return to their second Olympic appearance in Japan. The men's rugby sevens competition in Tokyo will run from July 26th to the 29th of July, and Shuja is in Pool C of the 12-team competition alongside continental rivals South Africa, the United States, and Ireland. The female team, nicknamed the Lionesses, up in Pool A alongside New Zealand, Russia, and Britain. So talking about the Tokyo 2020 Olympics now, Kenya women's beach volleyball team has been drawn in a tough Pool D that has United States of America, Brazil, Latvia ahead of the Olympic Games set for later this month in Tokyo, Japan. Now, the draw of the tournament was held in Russia, where a total of 24 teams were divided into 6 pools of 4 teams. The Kenyan quartet of Gaudensha Makoka, Bracksides Agala, Von Wavinia, and Poshika Kasisi, who recently won Africa's sole ticket to the Olympics during the CAVB Continental Cup and Olympic qualifiers in Morocco, will make their debut at the Summer Games. And in India, Indian swimmer Mana Patel made history as she became the first Indian female swimmer to qualify for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics through the universality quota. Now, the quota allows 1 male and 1 female competitor from a country to participate in the Olympics, provided no other swimmer from the same gender qualifies for the Games or receives a FINA invite based on his or her Olympic selection time. Now, this is India's first female swimmer to qualify for Tokyo 2020, and the 21-year-old will go on to race in the women's 100-meter backstroke event. Good one for the lady right there. And in Under-17 Arab Cup now, national teams are set for the Under-17 Arab Cup, scheduled to be played in this summer in Morocco. And the championship takes place between the 29th of July and the 15th of August, and it will comprise 16 Arab nations. Now, this will be the tournament's 4th edition since its inception in 2011. Now, Saudi Arabia were the first champions, followed by Tunisia, then Iraq in 2014. Egypt were drawn in Group D alongside Bahrain, Somalia, and Lebanon. Meanwhile, Group C includes 2 previous champions, Iraq and Tunisia, as well as Mauritania and Yemen. Host Morocco were drawn in Group A with Saudi Arabia, Palestine, and Kuwait. And of course, Group B has Algeria, the UAE, Libya, and Djibouti. And that's a wrap on Sports Update on NC Continental Prime. Oyamo Doka and Joko will hand over to Sulai for the rest of the news.
Thanks, Udoka. Now it's time to check out what to expect in terms of sunshine and precipitation across the African continent. And that's all on the news for this hour. But before we go, let's quickly take another look at some of the major stories this hour. Now, South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma goes to court tomorrow in a bid to stop his arrest. Preparations continue ahead of Tuesday's match for Justice rally in Ghana. South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma goes to court on a bid to stop his arrest. I beg your pardon. And of course, our southern governors in Nigeria say the next president should come from their region as part of a 6-part communique issued after their meeting today. You can follow us on social media. We have News Central Television. You can also download our mobile app on the App Store and Play Store. You can also watch News Central live on Star Times Channel 274, Avio TV, Channel 23, Vision 247, Free TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. But before we go, my producers just told us news coming in from Nigeria's southwestern state of Kaduna has it that the state has ordered closure of schools, and this is following the recent kidnap of more students in the state of Kaduna. The Kaduna state government in the northwest of Nigeria has ordered immediate closure, specifically of 13 schools in locations what they call vulnerable to bandits. You can catch up on the latest on our website, newscentral.africa. I'm Sulaiman Alede. Many thanks for watching.